Hello, hello. Welcome to this live workshop, Planting for Profit. This is a microgreens workshop, so if you're here to learn about growing microgreens, you are in the right place. I see many of you logging on, and in the comments, a lot of you are letting me know where you're coming from, which is really interesting to see. So thank you. And as you're logging on, say hello, pop your name, your where you're coming from into the comments so I can see. We've got people from all over the world here interested in learning about growing microgreens, which is so exciting. It just fills me up because I believe in this movement and this unique type of farming so much. I have seen how it has changed my own life in a major way, and how it's changed the lives of so many others. The people that I'm growing for and the people that I'm teaching to do this, lives change. So I'm really, really excited. I thank you for your time. Uh, if you are listening to the recording and not able to be here live with me, welcome as well. I'm glad that you're here. I know the time isn't perfect for everyone. I'm giving just a few minutes for everyone to log on here. Again, thank you. South Africa, Sweden, Florida, Utah, uh, so many diverse places that people are from, which is really exciting. Uh, I'm going to dive into this. We're going to use some slides in the beginning. I want to cover the very basics of microgreens. A lot of you responded to my email, which was awesome, letting me know if you were either brand new to microgreens, or maybe you're growing for yourself and your family, or maybe you're growing for profit already. This workshop is really designed to teach you how to start growing for profit on a small scale. If you are just interested in learning to grow for your own personal use, amazing. That's how I started too. I was growing with as a fun project with my kids, as a way for us to eat healthier, get some nutrient packed greens into our diet, and then I just got hooked on that growing. And so I started to scale up and started to sell my microgreens and see you could make a profit. So if you're at that stage where you're just wanting to grow for your family, great. I still think this is going to be a beneficial workshop for you. So again, what we're going to be learning today is what supplies you need to get started. I want this to be really practical knowledge for you, really practical information. So we're going to talk about what supplies you need, what are the best supplies. It's easy to get overwhelmed when you start looking at all the options out there. So I'm going to share with you my system. I'm also going to show you step by step the planting process. That's why I'm out here in my greenhouse. I recognize the sound quality might not be perfect. Having some technical issues with my clicker, so you see my laptop here in arm's reach, but we're going to make it work. This is truly my workspace, so I want to invite you into it. This is not a staged environment, so it's like I said, the sound quality may not be perfect, but the information is valuable. So I hope you stick with me here. We're also going to cover planting pitfalls. So I have worked with a lot of growers over the years, and I have grown myself now for 6 years commercially. So I have seen what you can do wrong and how you can avoid those steps so that you're having better results sooner. You're in the right place today if you want to learn how to grow microgreens. It's simple as that. Again, we have all levels, from people who are brand new, just kind of been hearing about microgreens, interested. Some of you are looking for something that you could maybe do as a work from home situation. You're looking for something that has some flexibility, something that you would love to do. And you keep hearing about microgreens. Sometimes when something keeps popping up into our world, it's a sign, right? We're supposed to dive into it a little more. Um, if you have some experience growing and you're looking to scale up, or you just want to take away any pointers that you might have, we can always learn. I am always learning from other growers and from other people. So I think it's a great place to come and learn and see what my system is, see if there's any takeaways for you. Uh, you may not be in the right place if, for one, if you already have a large scale successful microgreens business. I just want to let you know now, just to save your time, that this is a very introductory type workshop. So I'm going to be covering the basics. So if you are already running a successful business, awesome. If you want to stay and hang out, great, you're more than welcome. But I just wanted to let you know that up front. And if you are looking just to really learn how to grow a windowsill pot, this may be more than you need. You're, again, welcome to stay if you'd like to. I have some other resources if you're just looking to grow on a very small scale for yourself for personal use. But I encourage you to stay. I think you will see that a lot of the information that we cover here can be scaled down and can be scaled up to fit your goals. If you don't know me already, I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Laura. I am a nurse turned microgreens farmer. So my background is in healthcare. I worked in the hospital setting as a registered nurse at the bedside. I've worked in many different departments, and that was a huge part of my life for 12 years. It defined me, really. It was something that I loved when I started it. I really had this desire to help others, and nursing seemed like a easy way to do that. Over the years, I got married, I had kids, and my whole priorities shifted. And I started to become more and more dissatisfied with my work at the hospital. I found myself jumping through a lot of hoops, whether I really believed in what was behind them or not. And that was hard for me. I just no longer felt like it was aligned with the core of me. I started having some personal struggles kind of related to that, spending so much time doing something that didn't light me up. I started to struggle and was searching, really. So my babies were at home. I felt like I was drained after coming home from the hospital, and I just didn't have the best part of me to give them. It made me so sad. So I had always had this kind of secret dream of being a farmer, but I also had a very practical, realistic side that thought, that's a nice idea, but you can't actually make a living. It's not reliable. You know, I've got a good job. I went to school for it. I can't imagine not being a nurse. So that was kind of where I was at. And then I found about microgreens, and I thought I was very drawn to it right away. I have this desire to live a more homestead type lifestyle, and I'm finding little ways to do that. And microgreens seem to be a great fit for doing something with my life that I really believed in, growing nutrient dense food for my community. What was really important to me was that I could do it on a scale that fit my life. So what I do now, I've come a long ways from that beginning, finding out about microgreens, being interested in them. I do commercially grow. I sell through a local distributor now. I also have moved into education, and this has been, it lights me up like you wouldn't believe. It gets me so excited to share, support, encourage others who have this same dream or share a passion for growing healthy food, for building wellness in people, and contributing in a really tangible way to our health as a greater community. So I teach people how to build home-based microgreens businesses that are rewarding, impactful, flexible, and profitable. That's the important part. And I do this primarily through my online program, Make Money with Microgreens. So we're going to talk a little bit about that at the end, but I really want to get dived in. I want to dive into the hands-on here too. So just know I'm going to share a little bit more about my program as we go. It's a great way that I can teach you step by step. Today, we're going to be, this workshop is going to be about an hour long. So I can only cover so much. It's why I chose to focus on planting. I reached out to a lot of you on Instagram, and that was what the most of you picked and what you'd like to learn about. So we're going to just keep it to the planting right now, which is, you'll see, there's a lot to it. So we'll have a lot to talk about. If you want to take it further, if you want to learn about setting up your business, harvesting, packaging, marketing, selling, all the other things that go into having a successful business and a profitable business so that you can do this for the long term, you will find that in my larger program. So if you are interested in learning about that, stick with me to the end. I've already kind of shared my story here, but I used to just dream. I remember sitting in the car before going into work, sitting there in my scrubs, just dreaming about being able to do something that felt rewarding, impactful, that I could be present with my kids. And now I'm actually doing it. It's a big reason why I'm here sharing with you today. I feel compelled to share it if it might help one person who also has that same feeling, has that desire, has that dream. I want to show you that it is possible, not just for me, but for so many others. And for you too, it could be if you want it to be. So let's talk about what microgreens are first. For those of you who are brand new, what are microgreens? So microgreens are actually, it's just a stage of a plant's life. So there's many different types of microgreens, but when we hear the term microgreen, it's talking about a stage in a plant's life. When I describe it to people, a lot of times I will reference sprouts. Most people are familiar with sprouts, right? Sprouts are sprouts. They're germinated seeds. You typically eat the root and the seed and the little sprout all in one. They're usually grown in very dark, wet environments. So quite a bit different than microgreens. Microgreens are the next stage in a plant's life. They're actually seedlings. So we are growing them and harvesting them above the root. So we just have this nice stem, cotyledon leaf, and the true leaf is just starting to form. If you were to let these grow a little bit longer, you'd go into the baby greens stage. So that's kind of where we're at, that window between sprouts and baby greens. That's the microgreen stage. And this is the stage in a plant's life when these are just absolutely packed with nutrition, flavor. They are super tender, amazing. So a little bit has an extremely concentrated amount of nutrients, which is really exciting. As we're starting to see studies and learn more about these, they're becoming very appealing to everybody. You know, they started out being used mostly by high-end chefs because they're so beautiful. They're really very, very striking in appearance, bright colors. They're very visually appealing. So chefs love to use them, and they have intense flavor. But as we're learning about the health benefits, more and more people are being drawn to microgreens. So why are they so profitable? You keep hearing about people who are making money with microgreens. It's a great business opportunity. What makes them so profitable? Well, for one, like I was saying, the demand is only increasing. So people are starting to hear and learn about microgreens, and they want them. This is a time when people are wanting to eat better, take charge of their health, increase their immunity naturally with good, healthy food. So there's a high demand for them. Microgreens have a relatively short shelf life. Now, this is a little interesting. What about their short shelf life makes them profitable? If you think about it, well, it's because as a small scale grower, you can be competitive when the product has a short shelf life. Let me explain. In the farming community, small scale farmers often have a hard time with decent profit margins because they're having to compete with huge farms. These large scale agribusiness type farms are able to get their costs down so low that they can charge, or they can ask very little for their produce, which makes it really hard to compete as a small scale grower. Microgreens do not do so well on this large scale agricultural type system, mostly because distribution does not work for them. The shelf life is short. By the time that they were to be shipped and sit in storage and actually get to the end customer, they'd almost be going bad. This means that people are wanting to buy these from local growers rather than from huge agro-businesses. So you have a real opportunity as a small scale grower to sell these into your local community and to find local customers who are going to really value these and who may not be able to get them or at least get quality microgreens anywhere else. Microgreens grow really fast. This is number 3, and they can be grown year round. We're going to talk about how growing microgreens, particularly when you're growing indoors, which most of you can do in your homes. It's pretty cool. We're going to talk about it more. They can be grown year round. My microgreens grow on a 10-day schedule. I stagger my plantings so that I have weekly microgreens to sell, which means weekly revenue coming into my business. There has never been a better time to start a microgreens business. Believe this 100% all my heart, and that's why I'm passionate about sharing it with you. If you are also wanting to learn about this, the more microgreens farmers, the better. I really stand behind that. I think there's just an abundance of people that will benefit from microgreens, and so many people who still don't know what microgreens are. We have an opportunity to teach, educate people, to help empower them to take charge of their health and to do it with a very practical, tangible means. This microgreens, this product that we can deliver to them week after week, fresh and beautiful and delicious. I should stop here. There's some questions coming in. If you do have questions, you can pop them into the chat or hold them to the end. I can easily get sidetracked. I've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to try to just keep on topic here so I don't get sidetracked. It's easy for me to get sidetracked talking about microgreens. So um, put your questions in. My wonderful, amazing assistant Stephanie will help compile some questions at the end, and I will do a question answer period at the end of this workshop so you can get your questions answered. Some of them may be covered as we go, so just hang tight, put them in there, and I will address them at the end. People are focused on health, food security, community, wanting to have a connection with food, boosting immune function. People are wanting to enjoy life and eat better. A lot of this is coming actually from COVID, this pandemic that made so many people kind of wake up to the food insecurity or the potential for that and wanting to take charge of their own health. So this is a great time to come in and be part of that solution. You can really be part of the answer that people are looking for, a way to connect with food and have local, delicious, nutritious food that they can have access to. You can grow microgreens. Some of you might be thinking, this sounds great, but I don't think it'll work for me because the big ones are I don't have time, I don't have space, I don't have the money for startup, I don't have any experience growing. I'm here to tell you, even if you don't have a lot of time, even if you don't have a lot of space, even if you don't have any experience, you can do this. I am living proof, and I have seen hundreds of other people become successful with this with very lean startups. I started on my kitchen counter. Then we had a spare room, kind of a storage room that I converted into a grow space by bringing a rack in and started growing just in my house. And I can show you how to do this. This is happening all over. People are growing in all different kinds of spaces, non-traditional agricultural infrastructure. So we're going to dive into the hands-on growing here. We're going to cover workspace. So your workspace is going to be different, may or may not be different than your grow space. Your grow space might be a garage, a basement, a spare room like me, a greenhouse perhaps, a shipping container, a shed, an entryway. I'm trying to think of some of the places my students are growing in. You can get creative, find a little space. You don't need a lot. We're talking about really, my racks here are 4 feet wide. You don't need a lot of space, 4 to 6 square feet really, that you could carve out inside. So it is easier to grow inside. I'm out in my greenhouse now. I love growing out here. It is more challenging to grow microgreens out in a greenhouse rather than inside. And this is because you're able to control temperature and humidity so much easier in a contained space. This is a unheated hoop house. Maybe you can see the sides are up. There's ventilation in here. And I do a lot of my growing in here seasonally, and I do a lot of my work. It's my workspace. So we'll cover what could be your workspace, what do you need to have in a workspace, what supplies you need to get started, what varieties you should start with. So there's so many different kinds of microgreens, right? I'm going to let you know the top 4 that I think every new grower should start with. I'm going to show you how I prep my trays. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of actually planting. We're going to talk about soaking seed or not soaking seed, how to spread your seed evenly, how to water your trays in. We're going to talk about stacking, unstacking, watering, blackout periods, all of that maybe you've heard bits and pieces of. And I'm just going to try to put it all together. So what I'd like to do is switch my view here. I'm going to scoot this out of the way so we can talk a little bit here. And we're going to start with workspace. So like I said, I use my greenhouse as my workspace. I didn't have this infrastructure when I started. For the first couple years, I just used my back porch, my back deck. That's where I did all of my seeding. You'll see what's entailed in the seeding here. So you can think about if you have maybe you do this in your yard, maybe you do it on your deck, maybe you have a space inside that you can do it. Maybe you do it in your garage. Think about some infrastructure that you already have that would work. What you want to have is you want to have access to water so that you can water your trays in, but it's not absolutely necessary. You could absolutely use a watering can to water your trays in. Or you can even use one of these like misters that work really well. So if you don't have a hose bib close and you can't use an actual hose, don't worry about that. You are going to need some kind of tables. You can see I'm not fancy here. I use these folding tables. I have some makeshift tables here. It doesn't have to be fancy. So get some tables that you can work with. You want to be able to have it get a little messy. So if you're doing this in your home, you're going to need a space, probably going to want to put a tarp down to collect any soil or seed that falls and any water, so you can just wrap that up and take it out. Out here in my greenhouse, I have this floor where the water can drain through and I can keep it nice and tidy. So it's a great space to work with. So we've talked about workspace. I'm going to cover the other supplies you're going to need, starting with seed. I buy my seed primarily through True Leaf Market, some of you might know, and I just wanted to show you what the seed looks like. These are the 4 varieties that I recommend that you start with. I recommend you start with pea, sunflower, radish, and broccoli. The reasons are, these are relatively easy to grow as a beginner. They are pretty consistent growers. They grow in roughly the same time span, and there's a demand for them. These are very approachable and everybody loves these. Chefs love these. Grocery store owners want to buy these. Direct consumers, people, your neighbors, they are going to be excited about these varieties: pea, sunflower, radish, and broccoli. If you're able to take notes, these are good things to jot down. If you are not in a place that you can take notes, maybe your hands are busy or you're out doing something or you're driving or who knows what, I'm going to send you a couple things just to have as notes. One is the varieties that I prefer. I don't expect you to remember. And the seed densities. This is really important for you to understand. So starting with pea, my absolute favorite variety of pea, hands down, is speckled pea. I recommend that you soak pea seed before planting it. I soak my pea seed overnight, so 8 to 12 hours. I let my pea seed soak. I rinse it well before planting, and I use 280 grams, which you can see this mason jar. You can see that it's about up to here. That's how much seed. Just so you have a visual. You always want to measure your seed dry. When you are looking at seed density charts and choosing a density that works for you, make sure you're measuring your seed dry, even if it's a seed you're going to soak. There can be a lot of variation with soak times and how much your seed ends up weighing. So make sure that you measure your seed dry. So speckled pea to start with. For sunflower, I like black oil sunflower. And this is the one that you will see a fair amount of variation from lot to lot when you're buying it, from seed company to seed company, and even within the same seed company. You may see some range and size and results when it comes to sunflower. Sunflower, I soak for 1 to 2 hours. I use 140 grams. It's about up to here on this mason jar, dry, and I'm going to soak it, like I said, for 1 or 2 hours. So a black oil sunflower. For radish is a really fun one. There are lots of different kinds of radish, and they're very different in coloration. So I have a favorite pink stemmed. My favorite pink stemmed is this one here, and it is Red Arrow. It's does really well, cost effective. And my favorite purple radish is Rambo. So Rambo radish and Red Arrow are my personal favorites. Again, I'll send you out this information in an email. So make sure you look for an email following this workshop, and I'll send out that information in case you're not able to write it down. So I use 50 grams of seed per tray. And yes, I measure my seed in grams. And the reason I do that is just for consistency, and I recommend it. As you start getting into growing microgreens, you may grow some varieties where you're using a very small amount of seed. The seed is very light. So it's much easier to measure accurately when you're using grams rather than ounces. The final variety is broccoli. Love broccoli. Super, super nutrient dense. A lot of fun studies coming out covering sulforaphane and other phytonutrients that we know are in broccoli microgreens. So I use 25 grams of seed. per tray. I do not soak the broccoli. I do not soak the radish. These will go on dry, as I will show you. I thought it might be fun to show you what seed volume looks like. If you're new to microgreens growing, you may not be used to buying seed in this kind of volume. And a lot of people ask me, how much seed should I buy? You're used to buying little seed packets if you're a gardener, so it can seem like an extreme amount of seed. I'm going to show you here. This is what 25 pounds of broccoli seed looks like. There you go. So this is 25 pounds of broccoli. Walthalum is the 29 is the variety I like. Again, that'll come in the email. It's really consistent grower. And it may seem like an insane amount of seed, particularly if you're a gardener used to growing other kinds of crops. This amount here, this is 25 pounds. So this will yield me 450 trays. It's a lot of trays. So if you think about it, it can be hard for people to invest the money, right, in seeds. I encourage you to look at it as that. It's an investment in your business. And really, the margins on microgreens are like no other crops. If you have dabbled with farming, this is going to blow your mind as far as the profit margins go. So this bag of seed, this is organic broccoli seed. It cost me $413. That might seem like a large price tag, but remember, I'm going to get 450 trays of microgreens out of this. This is one tray of mature broccoli here. It ends up being about 92 cents a tray in seed, and I'm going to yield probably about $40 for this tray. So you'll see the margins are quite good, and even if the seed cost initially seems high, when you break it down by tray, it's very reasonable, particularly when you know how much you can sell these microgreens for. If you are buying conventional rather than organic, you'll notice the prices are significantly lower. For this, I looked up, it was $228 for the conventional seed. I do recommend growing organic seed for microgreens. That is just a principle I stand on. I really believe in that movement. I was certified organic for years. I no longer choose to continue with the certification, but I still grow using organic standards. Nothing's changed with my growing practice. So I recommend using organic seed. Again, just wanted to give you a visual on what 25 pounds of seed looks like. Scoot that aside. Bear with me. I'm going to scoot this seed down here. And we're going to move on to our next supplies, which are trays. Microgreens are typically grown in 10 by 20 trays. I'm going to show you some here. I have these very pretty colored ones. I like them. I love being surrounded by color. It's maybe part of why I like microgreens too. Being surrounded by living plants and being surrounded by all the color brings me joy every day. And it's just really rewarding to work with. And even the trays are pretty. So a 10 by 20 tray is this size. I prefer to grow in the shallow 1-inch trays. You can also use deeper trays. You may have a lot of options depending on where you live. I live in the US. I have a lot of options when it comes to buying trays. You may be more limited depending on what part of the world you live in. So look and see. I get my trays from Bootstrap Farmer. I highly recommend buying Bootstrap Farmer trays. They are more costly than some other trays out there, but they are extremely high quality. I started with really cheap trays and they broke apart and I had to replace them all. So it ended up just being kind of wasted money and wasted plastic. So I'm really glad these have held up for years. They are great. You will see that they come with drainage holes. I'm not sure if you can see that with the camera. With drainage holes and then just solid tray. And you want both. So you want a tray with drainage holes, and you want a solid tray as well. How many trays should you get? Well, it's kind of like how many seeds should you get, right? Depends on what you want to grow. The larger volumes, the less you're going to pay. But you may not have as much to invest, so you have to figure out what's going to work for you. With seed, I typically recommend you start with 5-pound bags. Those are more affordable. It's a great way you can have a good amount of seed to practice with. You could start with a 1-pound bag of seed if that's where your budget's at. You don't have to go right to these big bags of seed that are more costly, even though over the long term they're going to break down and be more cost effective. The more seed you buy, the cheaper it will be. Same with trays. So the larger volume of trays, the cheaper the trays, but you have to think about your own budget and your own goals for growing. How many trays are you wanting to grow? Maybe you're just wanting to start out growing 4, 8, 12 trays, and that's where you want to be. Just remember that you need a tray with holes and a tray without, that those are paired together and become a unit. If you want to be harvesting your microgreens every week, which I recommend if you are wanting to grow for profit, staggering your plantings. This is something that we cover in my course, really figuring out how to stagger your planting so that you have a weekly harvest day. If you're going to be doing that, you need at least double the trays that you're going to use, that you're going to grow per week. I recommend triple, because you may not feel like emptying your trays, immediately washing them to planting them again. Maybe you will. That's up to you. So you'll have to decide. You'll see what it looks like here and what you want to start with. Some people, they know they want to do this. They want to buy a large volume to get the costs down and make that investment up front. Others, you want to stick to your budget that's more reasonable and makes sense for you. The next supply that I want to talk about is soil. I just want to give you some visuals on things. So this is a loose fill bag of soil. This is ProMix HP, which stands for high porosity. It is a wonderful peat-based soil mix for microgreens. Microgreens do really, really well in this ProMix. It may or may not be available to you locally. You may need to find something else. ProMix makes a variety of soil mixes that are all pretty good for microgreens, really. There is a ProMix MP multi-purpose that also works good, and a BX that can work as well. I also use, I don't know if you can see it, this is my primary soil mix right now, Sunshine Mix, a number 4. So this is made by SunGrow. If possible, I recommend you find a peat-based seed starting mix or germination mix made by ProMix or SunGrow. These are just, they're tested. You know, they're industry standards as far as what people have used and grow successful microgreens in. Are there alternatives? Yes. Microgreens can grow in a lot of mediums. Coconut coir, a lot of people grow them hydroponically. I love growing in soil. I get the absolute best results growing in soil as far as taste, flavor, and yield. So I highly recommend using soil to grow in. The next supply we're going to talk about is a soil press. Now this does not have to be fancy, but it is a really helpful tool. If you don't have something like this, you can definitely use an empty tray, at least when you're starting, that can be helpful. You will see this in action when I go to seed some trays. Basically what this does is it presses and levels your sowing surface. So once you've filled your tray with soil, you're going to press this down. You've maybe seen me do it on videos, and it creates a nice even level surface, which helps all the seeds germinate at the same time, which is what you want for microgreens. Remember, microgreens have a very short growth cycle, so you don't want them to be all staggered. You want them to grow all together. You'll need a kitchen scale, just a basic kitchen scale for measuring your seed. If you're growing pea, sunflower, or other varieties that you need to soak, you'll need some kind of bucket. You can use large 5-gallon buckets. You can use strainer bags. You can use a colander, what have you. You're just going to want to make sure that you are soaking and then rinsing those seeds really, really well. I'm going to pop back over here and make sure that we're not missing anything. Again, I can get kind of going on my talk here. Yes, we talked about the grow space. You do need a space that's not going to freeze, would be ideal. You want to think about body mechanics and your table heights, something I could work on. If you want to see my full supply list, so I'm talking and I'm showing you the supplies hands-on that you're going to use for the planting part of this business. But if you're wanting to grow microgreens for profit, you might want to look at my big supply list. You can see it here. I can also send it to you in an email if you are interested in receiving that. It covers everything. So from my racks to my grow lights, dehumidifiers, temperature gauges, light timers, everything you need. And it's really pretty reasonable amount of stuff. For starting a agricultural farm business, this is something that could be done on a budget with a very lean setup to start. We covered all the all the supplies we need. Oh, you're going to need a place to germinate your trays. So trays are going to germinate best in a temperature controlled environment. Between 70, 75 degrees is ideal. And when you stack your trays, I will show you about stacking. We're going to actually put weight on the trays. So you will need some kind of weight. I use these blocks. You can use pavers. There's a lot of different ways that you can get weight, about 10 to 15 pounds on top of your stacked trays. It's crazy. You'll see this. These microgreens become so strong that they can push that weight up, and it helps them to grow taller and stronger and helps them to germinate. So you'll want some kind of weight. We covered the varieties to start with. For soaking, we're going to soak our pea overnight, 8 to 12 hours. We're going to soak our sunflower from 2 to 4 hours. And seeding density. So again, I am going to break this down in the email attachment. So make sure you open that email if you're wanting and can't remember the seeding densities. So pea, it's 280, sunflower, 140. This is all in grams. Radish, 40 grams, and broccoli, 25 grams, all dry. Stacking trays. I'm going to show you this hands-on. So let me come back to the view here. Appreciate your patience. And yes, people are wanting the email, which is great. I know, trying to take notes and listen, a lot of times we're multitasking. So I'm going to show you how to grow out in these standard 10-20 flats, but know that there are different sizes of trays. You may be able to find trays locally. I always recommend that you look for a local supplier of items first. If you can find quality supplies locally, great. If not, you can look to Bootstrap Farmer for trays. They have these 10 by 10 trays, which are a nice size as well for smaller volumes. And also these little 5 by 5s that grow microgreens really well. I do this a lot when I'm selling living microgreens so that they're in a nice little container that can be returned to me. They also have the more shallow mesh ones. So they all do well with microgreens. Lots of options. But I want to show you the 10 by 20s because this is kind of our standard. They fit perfectly on the rack and allow you to be really efficient when you are growing for profit. Again, I'm gearing all this towards if you're growing for profit, these are the varieties to pick. These are the trays to use. This is how we're going to do it when you're growing for profit. So let me set up my trays and I'm just going to show you hands-on how we do it here. I get my trusty scoop here. People always ask where I got this scoop. I just got it at a thrift store and I use it. I use 3 liters of soil per flat for these shallow 1-inch trays. Now, if you're growing in the deeper trays, you can either fill them half full or you can fill them to the top either way. The reason I don't like them, the deeper trays as much, is if you're only filling them halfway, because they really don't require the soil be filled all the way for these quick growing varieties anyway. If you only fill it halfway, you have issues with the microgreens not getting good ventilation. It's really important after they germinate and are unstacked that they are in an environment where there's a lot of airflow. Microgreens are grown very, very intensively. You can see they're thick, right? So if they're set down in a deep tray, they are not getting that airflow. You can see the deeper tray compared to this tray. So they're either sitting down low and they're not getting the ventilation at the stem level, or you're having to use twice as much soil, which does add up over time as you're scaling up your business. You want to think about all of those costs. So I like these shallow trays. We're going to go ahead and use the ProMix HP. And it's really as simple as this. You perhaps have seen me on videos doing this or others on video doing this. If you don't have access to a really high quality soil mix like this, this ProMix is very fine. There's very little debris in it. I do not screen this. What I mean by screening is creating, using some wire mesh, usually 1/4 inch wire mesh, where you just put it over a frame and actually run your soil through it. If you are using a potting mix or some other kind of soil mix that has a fair amount of debris, sticks, bark, that kind of thing, that's the sticks and bark, the debris is really not ideal for microgreens. So you want to sift that out. You want to strain that out. If you get a nice fluffy fine mix like this, you don't need to, so you can skip that step. You want to skip steps that are not necessary for your business so you can be as streamlined and efficient as possible. A lot of you are really busy people and are thinking about starting this as a side hustle. That's how I did it. It was not, I didn't jump into this as a full-time microgreens farmer. It was a side hustle. I had very little time to invest in it. So I'm always thinking about how to streamline. So if your soil is fluffy, you're just gonna fill your trays. You can break up little clumps with your hands. And you're gonna go ahead and smooth your soil out. Notice that I'm doing this dry. So I am not wetting my soil first, and I recommend using this technique. This is an important part of my system, is putting the soil in dry. When you wet the soil ahead of time, the soil compresses. You want some air pockets kind of in your soil, which you don't see really. It looks like it's all even and compressed. See, there's a little stick. I'm going to take that out. So you want it to go in dry. You're going to lightly compress it. And if you find sticks and bark, go ahead and just pull them out. You can decide if there's so much that it's becoming a hassle and taking you a lot of time to pull out as you're going, then you may want to start screening your soil. Just go into the hardware store, getting some of that wire mesh and making yourself a little screen that you can run your soil through into a large bin. I typically don't get my soil right out of a bag. I put it all into a large bin that's very easy to scoop, and you can figure out what's going to work best with your work system. Once you've smoothed the soil out, you can see how fast that was really. You're going to use your handy dandy soil press, which is really just a piece of plywood with a handle that's cut to size. That's the important thing. You want it cut exactly to the tray size so there's no gaps left over at the edges. And you're going to press pretty firmly, press the soil into your flat. It's still dry, mind you. Perfect. Now you can see very level, very even, nice sowing surface. This is perfect for microgreens other than one thing. It's not wet. So we're gonna wet it in. I did not bring my hose in here. So if you don't have a hose, I do have a hose, but if you don't have a hose, and you may not everyone has a greenhouse space to work in, you can use a pump sprayer or even a watering can with a fine attachment. This can work as well. And you're going to just wet your trays. A hose with a fine mist setting on the nozzle works really, really well and is faster. But we're going to just use what we got here. It will work as well. Just takes a little bit more time to wet the soil. You want to make sure that you're wetting it evenly. The tendency is for the edges of the tray to dry out. This can be because we don't wet them thoroughly because we're not wanting to make a mess. You can put your trays really close together if you're not wanting to, so your water is kind of overlapping onto the next tray then. The other reason the edges dry out is just because they get exposed to air when they're stacked, whereas the middle stays pretty protected from airflow, and so it stays a lot wetter. So what I like to do is just go around the edges a little extra. And you will get a sense as you do this. The awesome thing about microgreens is they grow so fast, you get feedback right away. It's not like gardening where you grow tomatoes and you try a style of pruning and you think, oh, next year I'll try this. And it takes so long to become really good. Microgreens, a week later, you can try it again, tweaking something. You will get the feel of the weight of the trays when they've been watered adequately. You want them to be wet through. You can kind of dig up a corner here and look and see if you have watered through. You do not want them to be soggy, dripping. There should be no water coming through to the bottom tray. If there is, you water them too much. Once your trays are perfectly prepped like this, it's time to seed. You're going to use your handy dandy scale to measure your seed. If you are really crunched for time, you can measure seed by volume. You will see that I have labeled and marked what 25 grams of broccoli seed looks like in this container. So you can do that. I recommend it's most accurate to use a scale. I'm going to just zero that out and make sure that we're at 25 grams on our broccoli. See if my mark is right. It is exactly right. So we're going to start with the dry seed here. Broccoli is dry. I recommend, a lot of people ask, what kind of vessel should I use for planting? Should I use a cup or what? Just use the same thing, whatever it is. If it's a mason jar, if it's an old yogurt container that's been cleaned out, whatever it is, use it consistently because your hand will get very practiced and will get good at seeding consistently. And that's what you want to really think about doing. Spreading your seed very, very evenly. This comes with time and practice. A lot of people want to know the system. I will show you my system of going back and forth, but I also encourage you to be patient with yourself and just keep doing it. You will get better and better and better as you go. I like to go at a very systematic flow, and I go both directions. And I'm just loosely scattering. Some people like to use a seed shaker. I like to separate my trays a little bit so I don't overflow. I spread my seed out directly to the edges. I lose a tiny bit of seed over the edges, and it's worth it to me to have my trays growing out fully. There's not a gap around the edges. I'm going to go back the other way now, up and down. So I go horizontally and then vertically. You want to make sure that you're spreading evenly. The tendency sometimes is to get the middle a little bit too heavy, so just be aware of that. That's our broccoli seed. I'm just going to go ahead and actually seed a tray of each of these. So for my radish seed here, I have 50 grams. And you'll see I do the same thing right out to the edges. The seed sneaks onto the other tray. You will find it when they grow. If you are doing, most likely you'll be doing multiple trays of each variety. So I recommend you do all one variety, then do all the rest. So you're not going tray to tray with multiple seeds. So I go each direction. So I get a nice even spread. This one's a little bit easier to see just because the seed is lighter. Now for the pea and the sunflower, we are using soaked seed. So I soaked my pea last night. I measured it out, 280 grams. I rinsed it really well right before coming out here. And I'm going to show you what it looks like here. Again, just measured out 1 tray's worth for the pea, the speckled pea. Now, rather than sprinkling the seed, with any seed that we soak, we're going to just use our hands. And I love the feel of this. And you will get very efficient. You're going to just kind of pull the seeds to the corners with a gentle pull it down to the next corners, and just gently spread out to the sides. Really pretty quick and easy. You'll get more practiced at this. At first, people spend so much time trying to get their seeds exactly spread evenly. Sunflower. Now, depending on when you soak, you may see your soaked seed that's actually starting to germinate. You may see the little taproot, the little tail forming, which is kind of fun. You know, it's got a little jump start. That's why we soak them, is it gives them a little jump start so that they will all grow at the same rate. Just helps to break down that covering that's protecting the seed from germinating. We want to create ideal germination environment, which is warm and moist and dark for most seeds. Depends on your varieties. So once I've spread my seed evenly, sunflower, I did the same thing with my hands, pulling it gently to the corners, pulling gently to the sides, spreading them out evenly. A little bit harder to see on the dark seed here with the video. Now I'm going to water in again. If you have a hose, you can do this with a light mist and a nozzle, or use a pump sprayer like this, or your watering can. Either way, you can see it's really not too messy. I do water in my soak seed, even though the seed is already wet. It just kind of knocks off any soil that's attached to the seed itself, which makes them grow really nice and clean. Now, I do not cover these seeds at all. I leave them on the surface. This helps them to grow, like I said, really clean. Makes harvesting them super easy. You can see there's no dirt. They're just super duper clean. Sunflower, same thing, super clean, because I have sprayed off these seeds. Now we're going to stack these trays. They are ready to start germinating. You can stack your trays from 3 to 6 high. I prefer 4 high. I get the most consistent results with that. And so that's what I like to do, 4 high. And on top of your 4 high, you're going to put a solid 10-20 tray, and you're going to add weight. I use 3 of these blocks. They are 5 pounds each. So I have 15 pounds on top of this stack. This is going to go into my germination room now, and it's going to stay stacked for 3 to 4 days. Kind of depends on the temperature. I don't have complete control over the temperature. So on warmer days, they'll be ready to be unstacked after 3 days. And on cooler seasons, they'll take 4 days. Either way is fine. You just want to adjust your growing cycle. When you're thinking about growing for profit, you always start with your sale day first. When do you want to take your crops out? When do you want to deliver your crops? Pick that day and count backwards. Once you know how long your growth cycles are, you can just count back to figure out what your plant day is going to be. For me, it's 10 days from my delivery day. 10 days, all my crops. Makes it really simple. After 3 to 4 days, the stacks are going to look like this. You may have seen on Instagram, I showed you I was planting trays. These are those trays. So this is what they look like. You can see that they are pushing up the trays on top of them, right? They're very strong. It's really impressive. It's really fun to see. You want to leave them stacked until they're ready to be unstacked. The tendency with new growers is to keep peeking at them and want to see. Avoid that urge to peek at your trays. The problem with doing that too early is those little microgreens are trying to root into the soil. And when you lift that tray up, you disrupt them. They have a hard time getting started. So leave them stacked until they look like this, till they're ready to go, ready to get unstacked. And then you can unstack them. I'm going to take the weight off here. And you can see my sunflower. Now they look mashed down, right? They look kind of flattened and mashed and a little sad. Here's my pea. Again, looks kind of flattened down. I promise you these will all be standing up by tonight, tomorrow morning for sure. Once you unstack them, I give them a gentle top water. Again, you can use a light mist with a hose or this sprayer. I like to use the sprayer because I have a lot of control over it. And I'm just going to water these in on the top. After this initial top water, I do switch to bottom watering. So again, we're just sticking with the planting part. It's hard for me to not keep going into the whole process, but after the initial top water, they're going to go on my racks if I'm growing indoors, or they're going to just go on my horizontal tables out here in the greenhouse if they're growing in the greenhouse. And then I will bottom water them. That's why we use this solid tray underneath, is after this point, to water the microgreens, I simply pour the water into that bottom tray and let them wick it up with their roots. This keeps the microgreens nice and dry. So for now, I'm going to set these down over here. My pea and my sunflower. And I will show you what the radish and the broccoli look like. It was extremely warm compared to usual here. I'm in Washington State in September. It was still 90 degrees. So these have grown. They desperately want to be unstacked, but I made them wait for you. I wanted to show you. So I said, wait, trays. Normally, I probably would have unstacked these a little bit sooner, but because it was so warm, they germinated very quickly, but I wanted to show you. You'll notice, and you probably saw this on the sunflower and the pea also, that they're very yellow. They've been deprived of light in the stacked stage, and so they haven't photosynthesized. They will green up within a day or so. Another radish. And this is what the broccoli looks like coming out of germination. Same thing, we're going to just water these in. The reason I give it a top water is just that the roots are not quite as established at this point. So I like to just give them a little easy drink. The roots will quickly become established. Radish is one that can get wet and stay wet. So after this initial, sometimes I don't even top water, but you want to make sure you're not top watering radish after this point. Make sure you're only bottom watering so they stay nice and dry. That's the point of bottom watering, really. You want your microgreens to stay dry so there's no issues with disease because they're planted so densely. I'm going to pop back over here and make sure that we're covering everything, that I haven't forgotten anything as I've been going. So we talked about stacking trays, a blackout period. I'm glad that I looked over here. So you may or may not consider a blackout period for your microgreens. The reason you might black your microgreens out is to help them to grow taller. If you have played around with growing microgreens, you may have found that yours are very short. One way that you can get them to grow taller is after this germination phase, rather than putting them straight into the light, you put a solid tray on top of them like this, and you leave it on there for 8, 12, sometimes even 24 hours. You will have to play around with it in your grow environment to see what works the best for you. This will help them to grow tall. I've showed you this tray of broccoli. This was in blackout for 12 hours, helped the stems to grow. Basically, it's just searching out light. Now, you can go too long on this. If you leave it too long, they will become so leggy and crazy and really stressed and unhappy. So you don't want to black them out too long. 8 to 12 hours is what I typically do. Some people do a full 24 hours. You just will have to experiment with it. A lot of growing microgreens is exactly that. You get the basic fundamentals, And then you go and experiment. You go and play around in your space and write everything down. Keep track of everything. Figure out how you need to tweak this system that I'm sharing with you today to fit your grow environment and to have your microgreens do really well. You'll get feedback every week if you continue to grow these weekly, and you will learn how to be successful really quickly. Just don't give up. Some people, they have poor yields or poor germination on a tray, and they just think, oh, I'm not good at growing microgreens. Microgreens are like anything. They take practice. That's why I recommend starting with easy varieties. If you're learning anything new, start with the easy steps. Build that foundation, and you'll get better and better. I promise you, you will if you commit to doing this. So that's the blackout phase that you want to do with any varieties that are ending up shorter than you like. I typically black out my broccoli. I don't typically black out my radish. My radish tends to grow really tall on its own. I know some people do though. So again, you can experiment with it. Pea and sunflower also I do not black out. But if you're seeing that yours are very short, my pea tends to grow very tall. It's this one variety that does really well in the greenhouse. And it's so lush and robust. It definitely doesn't need a blackout phase because it gets very, very tall on its own. We talked a little bit about watering microgreens, initial top water and then bottom watering. Watering by hand versus automation. I recommend if you're growing on a relatively small scale, less than 200 or 300 trays a week, you can easily do this by hand. I love watering my microgreens by hand. It helps me with quality control. It allows me to physically look at and put hands on every single tray every day. It does not take very long. Even 100 trays takes me 20 or 30 minutes to water them all. And it gives me a chance to assess them and just get the feel for it. Really get in tune. You develop that green thumb for microgreens and practicing this. You get a sense by feeling the weight of these trays if they need water or not. Most environments, you will water your microgreens once a day, bottom water them, but it depends on your humidity. Let's talk about planting pitfalls. We've covered the basics of planting. I've showed you my system, step-by-step, hands-on. I want to talk about the pitfalls a little bit. I'm going to glance over at my notes so I don't forget anything. Okay, first of all, choosing the wrong supplies. A lot of these things we've covered. I just want to highlight them. It's a good review, really. So choosing wrong supplies, choosing cheap trays that are going to break, maybe choosing biodegradable trays that break down and mold and cause disease. If supply is not working in your system, find a better supply. Start with that. Make sure that you're using good quality seed, good quality trays when it comes to planting your microgreens. Choosing the wrong varieties. So some people dive straight into varieties that are very challenging to grow. People want to grow cilantro and beet and amaranth and red vein sorrel and some of those really pretty, highly sought after by chefs, more challenging longer term crops as far as microgreens go. And I encourage you to start with the basic varieties. These are my bread and butter as far as my revenue. These are what I make the most money on. This is what I sell the most of. I grow a wide variety of microgreens, but these are my basics, along with a mix. A salad mix can be a good addition after you've got these down. Start with the basics when you're starting out. Lack of care with tray prep. So you saw how I smooth trays out. It doesn't take that long, but you do want to take care. You don't want to have sticks in there, bark. You don't want to have hills and valleys in your trays. This will cause uneven germination or pockets of the tray that don't germinate, which will be really problematic with your microgreens. So take care. It'll be slower when you're first starting, and you'll become very fast at it as you get practice. Overwatering or underwatering. Maybe the top pitfall that I see, people overwater and underwater. Most people overwater, although I see both. Definitely consult. And a lot of the people in my program will send me photos, which is such a great way that we can check in, see what's going on. It's pretty easy to see if a tray is dry or wet, and you quickly develop this sense. So this is a common pitfall. You are either watering in your seeds too much, that they are rotting in the tray, or you're underwatering them and they dry out and don't germinate. Uneven seeding. This comes from a practiced hand. You want to go up and down the tray in both directions. Make sure you are spreading your seed as evenly as possible. With your soaked seed, you're using your hand to really spread those seeds out very, very evenly. Make sure that you're using the right seed densities. Don't guess at this. Every variety, you really need to dial in that density. Start with the densities that I provide you if you're new to this, and you may need to tweak it a little bit for your grow environment, but it gives you a good jumping off place. These are the seeding densities that work really well in my system, so I recommend you start with them. Not stacking. Some people don't stack their trays. I highly recommend it. You will get the best results. Stacking too long or not long enough, same thing. Too long, you will see stress in the plants. Not long enough, your microgreens will be weak. They won't have that vigorous quality to them that we like to see, where they're very robust because they have had that weight on them. Not using weight, not germinating in ideal conditions. This is another big one. So a lot of people want to grow these outside in greenhouses. It's great. It's really important that you get them to germinate quickly. You have a whole lot of seeds in a wet environment, and you want them to germinate so you can get them out into airflow. You want them to germinate quickly. If the longer it takes, the longer they're not in airflow. And what makes them take longer is cool conditions. So if it's getting cold at night, it's slowing down that germination process. So find some place, even a shelf in your home, where they can be in a warmer environment so they can germinate quickly and consistently. I think those are all the pitfalls there. So a lot of them, but a lot of the things that we already talked about, and a lot of these things you will figure out as you are growing. If you can grow, you see me plant out 4 trays here. If you can grow 4 trays, you can grow 100 trays. This is an incredibly scalable process and an incredibly scalable business opportunity, which is exciting because you can start on such a tiny scale. You can start with I had a little tiny rack at first. It fits 8 trays. And that's how I started. And that's how you can start too. I was selling those. I had a restaurant customer. I was selling those at that small a scale. And it gave me the confidence. I started bringing in some money with it, which allowed me to invest in the business. And it helped me to grow slowly over time. You can do this. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow and dive full head on. If you want to, great. But that's not working for everyone's life, right? So my main message here is you can do it on whatever scale fits your life. I need a drink here. In my program, I teach a lot around implementing a grow to order model. This is something that is key to you being successful early on. It minimizes waste and it helps you to have better profit margins right off the bat. What I mean by grow to order is that you go out and find customers rather than growing microgreens and then trying to find customers. Yes, you need to grow some at first to get a little experience, to get some samples, to try to get those customers in. But once you're comfortable growing, the grow a bunch of microgreens and then try to find customers leads to a lot of stress for people and a lot of burnout because it's week after week you're trying to rustle up sales or you're worried about if you're going to be able to sell them or not. I teach in my program about grow to order. So I help you to pick a customer base and come up with a plan for how you are going to acquire those customers, whether it's restaurants, whether it's grocery stores, whether it's farmers markets, whether you want to sell direct to consumers through a subscription program. All of these work well, and there's many more too. Some of my students have been coming up with even more unique ways of selling microgreens, selling to institutions like hospitals and schools. It's really exciting. You can be creative. What works where you live? Anywhere where you live, there are people who eat food, right? So there are potential customers. A lot of it comes to how we think about it, what our mindset is around selling, and how committed we are to getting our microgreens, our nutrient-dense living food, onto the plates of people. And microgreens are profitable. I have to focus on this because, again, this workshop is planting for profit. You can certainly grow some trays and eat them for your family and save yourself that cost that you would maybe go to the store and buy greens. It's something that you can have all year long, which is awesome for your family, but they're also profitable as far as a business model goes. I average about $20 profit per tray. Many of my varieties quite a bit higher than that, but this is a modest average just to be realistic with you. In the beginning, when your labor is going to be a little bit higher, it takes longer in the beginning to do anything. But just to give you some numbers, so you're starting to kind of think about this. So 10 trays a week, that's an extra $800 a month. 20 trays a week, $1,600 a month. If you're growing 80 trays a week, that's $6,400 profit per month. Uh, it's reasonable. It's doable. Get fired up about it, not just because of the money, but because it ticks all those boxes. For me, it was, I wanted something that felt impactful, that felt aligned with who I was, what I was here to do. I wanted to teach my kids about growing food and about, I wanted them to see me lit up and excited about what I do, not dreading going to work. All of those things. But being realistic, life costs money, right? We can't put ourselves fully into something if we are not making any money from it, if it's a business, right? So for me, I needed it to be a business so that I could choose to invest more in it. And for me, finding it that it was profitable was huge. And now I've seen hundreds, literally, I've helped hundreds of others do this. It's just, I feel really blessed to be a part of it. I've met so many people through this. I was really unsure as far as the teaching. I'm an extremely introverted person. So even going into social media, all of that was a challenge for me. But that's how much I believe in these microgreens. And it's how much I believe that this is a farm business model that's attainable and something that you can do. I know so many people love the idea of farming, homesteading, growing your own food. This is an entry point. This is a way you can get your foot in the door. Um, yeah, I get fired up. I get excited. Why aren't more people doing this? Well, I think it's a few things. One is there's just too much information out there, right? So people get overwhelmed quickly. There's no support or accountability, and they're not sure where to start. So just general overwhelm. You get excited about it. That's how I was. I think back to when I started. I wasted a lot of time, wasted a lot of money, felt overwhelmed, stumbled a lot, and I felt super alone in what I was trying to figure out, like watching YouTube videos, playing around, buying stuff, trying to figure it out. And that's why I created my program. Really, is I wanted to create a community. So I wanted to share all my knowledge that I had acquired over years of trial and error, so that other people didn't have to do that. Because I believe having success sooner will allow a lot of people to stay in this for the long term. But more than that, I wanted to create a community, and I have been incredibly blessed by that desire because I have amazing people in the program who continue to be involved, continue to show up for calls, ask questions, provide support to others, and we are just rooting for each other. And sometimes when you're new at something, starting a business, entrepreneurship maybe is new to you, having people that are cheering you on and rooting for you and supporting you is huge. Because there's times where it's going great and you're excited and things are going good. There's other times where you're struggling and you're questioning, why am I doing this? For sure I felt that. There were times I thought, why don't I just go back to working at the hospital? It'd be so much easier. That's when you need that community of support. A few of my students here, I realized that we're over an hour, so I'm going to go through these really quickly. If you want to read more, if you're thinking about what I've shared so far about my program, Make Money with Microgreens, and you're thinking, yes, watching you do this, I think I could do that. I'd love to start it. I could use help, could use the knowledge, the support, the framework all the way through, not just planting. I'm going to give you the information. You can take time to look it over for yourself, read and listen to some of the students' accounts. I have so many students that just are telling me how this program has helped them, how it has organized the information so that they could go through it at their own pace and that they could absorb it and go back to it and find it easily, and that they could have the support of other students and of me. I'm gotten to connect with so many people, and it's really been an incredible experience. Emily shares the program, cut through all the overwhelming information out there, gave me confidence to get started, and I've succeeded. I've already hit the ground running. Already gotten some big accounts. She's doing awesome. You can check her over at Mostly Greens. You can make money with microgreens. You can start now. You can start small. It's just a matter of if you want to do this. If this is something that you feel like a tug towards, pulled towards, listen to that, answer that. You absolutely can do that. So I've covered a lot. I started talking fast. I realized I'm over the time that I was going for, but um, yeah, there's a lot of information that I've shared here. So it's really about what are you going to kind of think about doing with that information. Some of you are going to get excited, take this home, start doing it. Others of you are really excited about the idea of making money from this. I know from the emails. I know from the emails that you have sent me that your desire is to learn to grow with the hopes that you could make money, that you could have some of that freedom and flexibility from a business you own, a farm business that you own and you operate, and that you can have an impact on people's lives with. If you're looking for that, I 100% hope that you will take the time to look into my program, Make Money with Microgreens. I say this because I know it can help you. I believe it with all of my being. I just got off of such a good call yesterday, and I'm just lit up again by one student just sharing a win. We share wins in the beginning, and he is stepping away from his job. He just had a new baby. It's an awesome time in his life just to be able to have grown up his customer base and to watch his progress as he has that initial goal of being able to be home, work from home, has come about with microgreens through implementing all of his learning. So this is everything in the course here. Again, I want to get to questions. So if you're interested, please look through. It's covering everything, starting how to set up your business. We talk about some mindset issues, all the practical steps of growing, more in depth than this, watering, setting up your grow space, your racks, your lights, all of this, harvesting, packaging, marketing, finding customers, keeping those customers, and growing your business from there. With Make Money with Microgreens, you have lifetime access to all the course information, videos, resources. So this just comes up a lot. People ask. And you have ongoing weekly live support from me. Really important to me, and I love doing it. So it's really fun to watch people grow their businesses and to see people accomplish their dreams with hard work. All the course bonuses, you can look, there's a whole bunch of bonuses, guest experts who come in and share about things that will help you as a new business owner, whether it's time management or branding or, there's so many. I'm trying to keep the time here. I'm not here to sell courses. So I'm hyping up my course because I believe in it, but that's not my primary goal here. My primary goal is, if you are looking for this opportunity, to show you that this is a way that you can have a rewarding, profitable business that you believe in and that you love. If you're looking for that, I can help you to find it. There might not be a perfect time. This is a big thing I say over and over. It probably won't be. Probably won't ever be a perfect time. Do it anyway. Start small. Make it doable for your life. You can do this. This is your time. Oh, my sweet baby's little hands there. I love that one. It's never too late to be what you might have been. I believe that. I didn't always believe that. When I was my last few years of nursing, I really felt like I kind of missed my window for trying something new. Nursing was it defined me. Even to myself, I didn't know really who I was apart from nursing. So know that it's not too late. More students, there's so many of these. I'm going to go through these. Please look at them if you're interested and you're trying to decide if this program is right for you. There are so many students sharing their experience with the program and how it helped them to get started and help them to find success. If you sign up weekly now, you get advantage of the weekly live coaching, which is invaluable. It really is. The return on investment for this program it's crazy. It's why I really encourage. I know that it's an investment. I believe it's important to make that investment in your knowledge, in your learning, in your ability to network and have that support. So many of us, we have access to information, but we don't take action. This is going to help you to stop just thinking about it, researching it, and actually take action. I believe that you can do it. Cecilia, this is the best microgreens program out there, and you should listen to me because I've taken other courses and still think this one's the best. And Cecilia has. She is She has taken many courses, and she continues to show up for calls. She continues to come back for the content in this program, and is having great success with her business. You can listen to her story also. I will send you over more information about the course. All of these students, these are just a few actually. I have their Instagram handles on there just to see a few of the farms, the microgreen farm businesses that have started as a result of this program. It's incredible. I'm hugely blessed to be a role in starting and helping. These people have done the work. They were like you. They were questioning if they could do it, if they should do it, and they decided to go for it, and they have done it. Everyone in a different way at their own pace, and it's been amazing to watch. So you could screenshot that, or I think it's in the information I'll send you if you want to check out some of the students' farms. So thank you for your time. I know I went a little over. I was trying to keep it to an hour. It's really hard for me to keep it to an hour because I love talking about microgreens. I want to dive into some questions here. If you are thinking about signing up and wondering, well, why should I do it now? There's never been a better time than now. Putting it off, I mean, you know what's going to happen. I'm also trying to encourage you to take action because I know how often we can put things off or maybe not prioritize investing in ourselves and our dreams. So I'm offering a additional marketing bundle, which is very, very valuable. It's got Canva templates. If you don't know Canva, it walks you through how to use it. It's going to help you immensely when it comes to marketing. So by providing you templates where you could just you decide on your farm name, you can plug it in, plug and play, really easy to use and to help you to get started. So you don't get hung up on, I don't know how to design a label, or I don't know how to create crop guides or recipe book or anything like that. I'm going to give you that if you sign up in this first week. I'm also going to do a welcome call. So this is a bonus call just for new students who sign up in this promotional 1 week period. You're going to come on with me. I'm going to get a chance to get to know you it's going to be in a group setting. So you'll get to know the others in the group also, which is so great. I used to just do one-on-one consulting and I love the group coaching. It's so fun. We all benefit from it. So come sign up now and take advantage of this opportunity to really connect with a group who's coming in just like you, new to microgreens and wanting to learn. I want to get to know you. You could put it off and put it off and put it off, or you can just take advantage. This is opportunity. Listen to your heart. Yeah, you can do this. I want to dive into some questions. Thank you again for your time. I'm going to pull up the chat here. Sorry, just a minute. Private chat disabled. So I'm not sure. Oh, here we go. Okay, so Stephanie, thank you. Stephanie's put some questions together. And for those of you who are, I'm going to move a few things out of the way so I can look at you while I talk. Again, I having to just work with what's working today. Laptop on the milk crate works well for me. This is you will learn that I believe very much in using what you have, moving forward. If you wait for it to be perfect, you're not going to do it. Use what you have. You have enough in yourself to do this. So let's dive into the questions. Do you ever do workshops in your greenhouse in person? I live in Washington and would love to enjoy a hands-on experience. I used to do workshops before COVID, and COVID put a halt to them, and I haven't resumed those because my online program, which came out of COVID, I couldn't teach in person, so I started teaching online, and it took off, and I have people all over the world now. That online program has grown and so much. I am juggling that with my growing and my family. I have 3 young kids that keep me very busy as well, so I don't have anything lined up right now for in-person. I'd love to do it in the future. How do you start up in a city that already has a successful microgreens business? That's an awesome question. A lot of cities have microgreens growers that are already growing, and that is a great sign. Almost easier for you if you're in a city with microgreens growers. That means that there's already awareness, there's already market demand has been proven by the fact that there's existing businesses. So that is a really good sign. It's a little bit harder if there's no one. You can make it work and you can be successful either way. But if there's microgreens growers around you, that means there's demand. So I guarantee you that the market is not tapped. I live just outside of Seattle. There are, I don't know, I could probably name 10 microgreens growers that live within a small radius of me, and we are all thriving and doing well. The more microgreens farmers, the more the awareness increases and the more the demand increases. There are many different business models and customer bases. So I would encourage you to pick the customer base and develop a strategic plan to go after those customers. And absolutely, the fact that there's another microgreens grower is only a positive sign. Do you have any tips on finding laws and regulations in our area for growing and selling microgreens? Yeah, this is something that we talk about in the program a lot. We start with the heavy stuff, actually, because I think it's important to get out of the way so it's not hanging over you. The rules, the regulations, it does vary quite a bit depending on where you live. My recommendation is to start with your Department of Agriculture. So start there, reach out, find the extension agent or whoever it is, and ask them directly. Explain what you want to do. Explain about microgreens. Make sure that you have clearly defined that you're growing microgreens and not sprouts. As often, depending on where you live, these are two different categories. Microgreens are considered a low-risk crop when you're selling them as raw agricultural product versus food ready to eat. Sprouts are a high-risk crop. So you want to make sure you've clearly defined that, and then just reach out and see what your Department of Agriculture has to say and they will lead you down the path there. What are some efficient ways to educate the customers about microgreens? Yeah, that's a great question too. Something we talk a lot about in the program as well, marketing. A big part of marketing is education. So there's so many different ways we can educate. The simple definition is a great place to start, and finding out what's important to people. So if you're wanting to do this for profit, you really want to get to know your customers, your ideal customers. What is important to them? If your ideal customers are really health conscious, then that's what you want to focus on. So get some information. I've got in the program, you can use those resources. If you're not in the program, you can certainly find this as well. You can find studies to back up your knowledge about the actual nutrients in the microgreens. We had a nutrition expert come in recently and talk to the group and share a lot of studies that back up the findings as far as the vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, all of these findings about microgreens. Really exciting. So I encourage you to take some time, do a little research, and come up with not canned responses, but practice saying what you're going to say so that you can simply define what they are, talk about why they're so either nutritious, why they're so delicious, about their flavor profiles, if that's what's important to the customer, about how they're grown, about how local they are and fresh. All of those things you can easily educate customers about. Is it advisable for hydroponic farmers to grow microgreens in-house? You can. Again, I have not had huge success growing hydroponically. My microgreens just never thrived the way they do in soil, but there are hydroponic growers who definitely grow in a home type farm setting, vertical setup, as well as in warehouses, large scale farms that grow hydroponically. So yes, it can be done. Do you ever do in-person workshops? I did cover that. I'm glad there's interest about that. That's cool. It would be really fun to do. How can you prevent mold in the trays? Great question. Do you soak radish? I do not soak radish. There's a quick one. Preventing mold comes down to making sure that you are using the right seeding density, that you're not overwatering, that you're controlling the humidity in your grow environment, and that you're getting those trays into well-ventilated grow environment as quickly as possible. So once, if there is a small amount of mold, a lot of times when you unstack your trays, a lot of times a top water will take care of that. It just breaks up the mold colonies. Then they're in that environment where there's airflow and the humidity is controlled and the mold just doesn't start up again. That's been my experience. If you have persistent mold, you can use something like Xeritol, which is a food-grade hydrogen peroxide. A gentle light spray after germination can take care of it. I encourage you to try to dial in your system and prevent the mold in the first place, which means not seeding too densely, making sure you have good airflow and not overwatering, and managing the humidity in your grow space. What is the type of broccoli? I use Walthalum 29. That's the variety. Broccoli, I haven't seen a lot of variation. Like pea, I definitely do the best with speckled pea as opposed to other varieties. Broccoli, I've grown a lot of different varieties and they all do relatively well. I just stick with the Walthalum because there's a good organic Walthalum 29 from True Leaf. So that's the one that I like. Have you grown on coconut mats? I have tried, again, not had great success with them personally. What is the best seeds available globally? I wouldn't say that there's a global seed supplier. It depends on where you are. We have students from all over the world in the program. We have students in Norway and Germany and South Africa and Australia and Hawaii, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some. So we chat about, I do offer recommendations of seed companies. I don't have personal experience with seed companies in other parts of the world. This is based on me networking with other microgreens growers. So there's not a global seed supplier. You will have to find one local to your country. I live in BC, Canada. How do I find seed distributor and trays and supplies distributors here? So Canada, yeah, there's a lot of Canadian students in the program also. You can, Bootstrap Farmer ships to Canada. True Leaf ships to Canada. Mums is a great seed company based in Canada. So you might want to check them out, MUMMS. And there are other, you have to do some research. You could reach out to a Canadian microgreens farm also. Micro YYC is my favorite, run by Vanessa there. She's doing amazing things with her zero waste program. She has a thriving microgreens farm. I'm sure that she could let you know. She is now using Bootstrap Farmer trays as well and buys them through a Canadian supply. I forget how it is exactly. You could reach out to her, Micro YYC, if you're looking for specific Canada-specific suppliers. Do you reuse your soil? I do not reuse my soil to grow microgreens yet. I'm working on it. It really needs to be composted hot enough, long enough to allow it to be inert enough without disease in it for growing microgreens because they're grown so densely. So it's tricky to reuse for microgreens. I believe it can be done. It takes some infrastructure and time, something I just don't have enough of right now. I do compost it and use it I have a large garden and I have chickens. And so I use it for that. There's a lot of, we talk about this too, what to do with your leftovers. There's a lot of different options, but composting and using it in a home garden, if you have that, works really, really well. Why is the rinsing so important? Oh, wait, do you compost the remaining cuttings of the microgreens? Yes, I do compost. Why is the rinsing so important? Generally, so if you're buying your seed from a high quality seed from a good seed supplier, most likely your seed is not bearing any kind of pathogens. That is the hope. If it is, I can give you information about how to sanitize that seed so that you're not bringing pathogens into your grow environment. But if we're talking about quality seeds, the rinsing and the soaking and the rinsing is just to try to speed up germination. So that's why we rinse it. Seeds that we soak typically have a protective barrier that's meant for the seed to not germinate until the season is right? And so they don't want in nature, seeds, if there is a warm fall like now, they don't want the seeds to start germinating too early. They need to wait until spring, right? So that protective layer prevents germination. We want to remove as much of that as possible to encourage them to germinate now. So we are kind of working against nature in that. On your rack, how far are your grow lights from the tray? 10 inches from the tray, from my grow light to the top of my tray. What is the ideal grow room temperature? 70 to 75 degrees, in my opinion. There's some different opinions out there, but that's what I prefer. I range from 70 to 75 with a humidity. I shoot for a humidity below 40%. So between 30 and 40. I have some fluctuation in my humidity. There are some growers who have it really dialed in to keep the humidity. Mine fluctuates a little bit with watering, which I don't have a problem with. No amendments in your soil mix. That's an interesting question. I have experimented with adding compost to the soil. I've not seen really any changes in yields related to that. I am experimenting with an organic fertilizer right now, Gaia Green, for some longer term crops in particular, and getting good results with that. I thought about including it in the workshop today, but I really want to keep it basic. So you're learning the basic fundamentals. Can you add nutrients and see if that helps? Yes, that's one of the fun thing about growing microgreens. You can do all these experiments. You can do side-by-side comparisons. They grow fast, you get results right away. So if you're interested in trying that, grow 2 trays, same conditions, and see what the results are for you. Did you make your own soil press? Yes. Yeah, I haven't seen any marketed anywhere. It's a good idea if someone wants to make one and market it. Mine's handmade, and I think most of them are. Most people have handmade, and there's all different styles. I have a little highlight on my Instagram because people ask about it all the time, just showing a few different people's soil presses that they're all homemade. Tap or reverse osmosis water. I do not use reverse osmosis water. I think, if anything, the minerals are probably good for the microgreens. I also feel like when you're growing in soil, it's not quite as big a deal, even with pH balancing and things like that. There's a pH adjuster in these soil mixes, dolomitic lime. So all kinds of water work well. So a lot of people have strong personal feelings about water. So do what resonates with you. I live on, I'm on well water here. I use the well water. I do have it tested to be in compliance with FSMA. And tap water, also municipal water, works just fine for microgreens. I will get some pushback maybe from some people. Again, if you have personal beliefs, that's the great thing about having your own business. You can have a business model that resonates and really aligns with you and your beliefs. Do you continue watering them during 3-4 of stacking, or do they wait? Oh, I'm so glad you asked this, because I didn't stress this point. I talked about no peaking. So once your trays are stacked, do not unstack them. Do not water them. I really should have stressed that early on. Do not water your trays while they're stacked. You have watered them in. They are stacked. They are staying moist because they are stacked. You do not need to water them. In fact, you should not, in my opinion. Is your germination room dark? It is not. It definitely can be. You will see like the edges of my trays that have germinated have like started to turn green here because they were peeking out, and the rest is yellow. So if you had if you had all the space in the world and could have a designated germination room, yeah, you could keep it dark. But if it's light, it really doesn't matter, because once they're stacked, they're protected. The majority of the tray is protected from the light. How do I get my arugula to grow tall and strong enough? I definitely use a blackout phase with arugula, and that's my best suggestion for getting it to grow tall. It is a shorter crop. That is just something you're going to have to accept about arugula. It's a little bit more challenging to grow, which is why I don't include it in my first ones. With the mucilaginous seed and the shorter density, I do use weight. Not everyone uses weight on arugula, but I feel like that helps it to grow stronger. And then I use a blackout period, sometimes up to 24 hours, to help the stem length grow a little taller. Where do you purchase your seed to begin growing microgreens? Is there a vendor you recommend? Yeah, I recommend True Leaf Market if you're in the US or Canada. They have a wide variety of microgreen seeds, organic, non-GMO seed. I've been really happy with them as a seed supplier. You can buy whatever increment makes sense for you, 1 pound, 5 pounds, 25s, or you can buy wholesale as well if you are ready to buy pallets of seed. There was a reason to put the sunflower in the bottom when stacked. Do these need more weight? No, when you're stacking 4 trays, you can really stack anyway. I do tend to stack the larger seed on the bottom, pea or sunflower, although typically I'm not growing just 1 tray of each variety. So I usually stack like kind with like kind. So I'll do 4 of pea, 4 of sunflower, 4 of radish, like that. If you are having mixed varieties, I would do the larger seed on the bottom, as they can tend to take more weight. You said you water every day, just checking to make sure underneath isn't standing in water, right? And the quantity is for big farmers. You're planting at least 50 plants. Okay, I don't fully understand this question. And the quantity is for big farmers. You planting at least 50 plants for trays. I do water every day. I do bottom water, and definitely there's no standing water left. You know, within 10 or 15 minutes, sometimes less, that water is all wicked up and it is dry. And the tray is beginning to get light, and sometimes the microgreens are even starting to look a little thirsty by the next watering time. So I keep them a little bit drier. I hesitate to give you an exact amount of water because it depends on a lot of variables. So this is something you will have to figure out. I do in my program walk you through and give you some standards, but you do have to be willing to try out and adjust. I can't just say use this many ounces of water. I've learned. And do I grow? Maybe you're asking if I grow 50 trays. I typically grow around 100 trays at my peak season, so I'm small scale operation for sure. Do heating pads under the trays help in germination room? You can use heating trays. I don't typically. They don't work really well with stacked trays. How many ounces do you harvest per tray? Do you need certificate or license to sell microgreens? Again, this depends on where you live, so you're going to have to look into the requirements, starting with your Department of Agriculture. And growing microgreen beet, yeah, you want to make sure if you're growing beets that you're soaking that seed and that you are covering the seed with soil or vermiculite. That's going to help. Okay, I think we got through all the questions. I'm going to have to sign off, guys. Thank you so much for coming to this workshop. It's been amazing to grow with you and teach you. Reach out with any questions. Take a look and see if the program might be a good fit for you. If it is, jump in now and take advantage of some of these extra offerings. Have a great day.